Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another guest session at the FPL Live Lounge. Today, we've got an esteemed guest with us, a man with multiple ranks that I could only dream of. We've got the one and the only FPLChai with us this evening. How are you, mate?
All good, man. How are you? Thank you for having me on. Appreciate the kind words, and we're gonna have a great stream. Good to see everyone in chat, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be good, mate. We'll get through some interesting topics. We'll pick some questions up from the chat. They do tend to be quite lively, the chats, when the guests on. They're not shy in coming forward with questions, so that's always a good thing. So let's get into kind of a bit of the formalities first off. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your FPL history? How long have you been playing? When did you get good at the game? And
So
yeah,
I
all that good
suppose
stuff, mate.
I got into FPL when I was 13. I'm still fairly young. I'm 21, maybe one of the younger content creators in the FPL community, which is fairly rare. And I feel like it's more of a consistency thing. People struggle when they're a bit younger to stay concentrated for 38 years, I'd like to say. And that's how I was when I was 13, 14. But yeah, not great ranks when I was younger. I think my brother set me up on their Game Week 1 set and forget teams for the season. Make the odd transfer a few weeks. But I suppose in the last 3 or 4 years, I've been taking it more seriously, winning my mini leagues. But like within the last 2 years, I discovered what a world ranking was, I suppose. I have a 4,326 finish, I want to say, in 2021. And then last year, of course, was the no Haaland season where we went 30 game weeks without Haaland. So I decided to make a Twitter account and done fairly well since. And then that made me a YouTube channel, which I'm still trying to grow now. So that's my story, I suppose.
Good stuff, good stuff. So what was your highest rank? I know you've reached some really, really high ranks. So what did you get up to, and what do you think got you there?
Um, my highest rank was last year, which was 1,839. But it was quite annoying because I spent, I think, 30 weeks in the top 1,000 and over 20 weeks in the top 100 and 10 weeks in the top 10, something like that. So it was a bit frustrating come the end of it. But it was last year. And what done it for me was, I suppose, blocking out noise. And at the start of the year, I didn't really look at much in terms of content. And I just kind of picked a team that I thought was good, and it was no Haaland. And I think it was a time where 90% of the people went with Haaland. So I kind of picked up different captaincy shouts each week, and it went well for me.
Good stuff, good stuff. So when you went with Haaland, was that a conscious decision early to kind of stick with it for long term, or was it just something that kind of happened as the year went on?
When I went without him.
Yeah,
Yeah, so like it was a conscious decision because I think they had a very, very good fixture in Game Week 1. I can't remember who it was, but you got a brace. But it was more so the depth in the squad. Like I had Watkins on the bench for Game Week 1, and we know the season he had. But yeah, I'm more of like of spreading the funds in places. There, like each position, I was very happy with when I made the team, so it was worth the sacrifice.
oh, great stuff, mate. Great stuff. And you said you set up your Twitter account. So how long ago have you been on Twitter for?
It's not even been a year yet. I think it's been, I want to say 9 months.
Oh, great stuff. So you're flying. I think you're up
Yeah, yeah.
around 20k followers, and you've caught a real big following. Do you think that's mainly down to your rank, or do you reckon you've got a really
Oh,
charming
100%.
personality?
A bit of both, you know what I mean? When I originally was up to like 6K-ish just from the rank.
Yeah.
Then I started wandering into making content and posting threads and all that type of stuff. But yeah, it's a mixture of the both for sure. The rank definitely helps.
Perfect. And you're enjoying working with Scout. I know, obviously, like you said, you're new to the content game, really, but enjoying working with Scout and everything they do.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they get a lot of flack because we're kind as experts or whatever. But at the end of the day, Scout are good to all of us really, and we're just trying to give as much information out to the public, I suppose, as possible. But we're no experts, so we just share our opinions and have a good buzz on the way.
Yeah, good stuff, mate. Good stuff. So let's kind of get into some kind of topics, if you like, and some of the hot news and hot trends at the minute on Twitter that are going on. So the first one I'm going to mention because it's been going crazy in my group chats. But what do you think to triple captain Haaland this weekend?
I think generally, I'm against doing it in a single game week. And maybe it's easy for me to say because I don't have him, but in general, a double game week is where I'd like to use a triple captain. Saying that, I haven't had great success with the triple captain over the years. But in general, I think it is probably a better rule of thumb. And so early on, game week two, I feel like, it could be a bit of a waste if it obviously depends on how it turns out. But in general, I think it could be better later in the season.
Do you think the chat has got anything to do with, yeah, and again I know you're a Salah owner, but anything to do with the fact that he kind of hauled in game week one, that maybe the Haaland owners are trying to play a bit of catch up, or
Yeah, I actually never considered that, and that's a really good point. But I think, yeah, definitely in the back of some of their minds, there will be that. And also, I would say it's like a home fixture against Ipswich. It looks really good on paper. And I know a lot of people get fed up with their chips early on, especially bench boost. And triple captain can be difficult at times as well. With the mystery chip coming out at the second end of the season, people might just want to use it, and that's fair enough.
yeah, I think there's a bit of everything. I'm a Haaland owner, but I'm firmly against the triple captain. I'm a Liverpool fan, so I watched Ipswich last weekend against Liverpool, and I was really impressed with them first half. They put a really good shift in. I know second half it kind of unravelled, but I can see them doing the same to City for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and I think maybe it only ends up 2-3 nil. And yeah, Haaland could grab a hat trick, but he could also nick an assist and get 75 minutes in that as well if it turns out to be pretty comfortable. So I'm kind of in a similar camp to you, but I am a Haaland owner. Next, let's touch on the huge talking point for the first few days, kind of after the game week was done, was obviously Kwanzaa, his price drop. What's everyone doing? And everyone seemed really calm at the beginning, myself included. I was a Kwanzaa owner, and then everyone started to slowly unravel and panic a little bit. What were your thoughts on everything?
Yeah, I know. I suppose like I do a deadline stream every week, and this is it's not a promotion, but I did say on stream, and it's quite interesting because I wasn't really elsewhere. But a lot of people asked me about Kwanzaa and what I saw, and my general take. I don't know about you because you are a Liverpool fan, but like when Konate is fit and when he's playing, he is one of the best in the league in my opinion. He's an absolute animal. So I didn't think in general Kwanzaa was going to be nailed for long. And I suppose I can't say it'd be unfair for me to say that I expect him to be subbed in 45 minutes.
Yeah,
But I said in general, like I didn't see Kwanzaa staying for long because he's so young. He is very, very good, and he has very good underlying numbers for a player his age. But when Konate is there, I think he will play.
yeah. I've got a very similar opinion of both players. I thought Kwanzaa, due to the pre-season and kind of nailing that position down in the first few pre-season games under Slot, kind of playing every minute. I did think it would be his to lose, but I didn't think he'd lose it that fast. I thought we'd kind of maybe get to the first wild card till Champions League kicks in, and then maybe we see the rotation. But it certainly happened a lot faster than even I thought, and I had him in my team, so that kind of shows the faith that I had in him, and yet so I think it's an interesting one. Obviously, we've had something similar now with Barco at a 4 million as well with the loan out to Sevilla, although people seem a little bit less concerned about him and kind of what happens. Have you picked any of these guys, or have you kind of stayed clear of these minutes risks, the Barcos, the Kwanzas, even the likes of Chris Wood and Anderson? Really, now we were kind of moving sides and people are coming in and transfers are affecting them.
Yeah, it's quite interesting you bring up the point of picking Ministrix players because, again, it's another thing I talked about when I was picking my team. Generally, like I knew one of the reasons I didn't go Quanta was because a few of the other players I had in my team were a few Ministrix. For example, I had João Pedro. I'd still have João Pedro. But also in Kunku, like these are not players that you probably expect to get 70 minutes plus. So I wanted to make sure players I were picking were going to be nailed, and if they weren't, I'll have a bigger depth on the bench. But yeah, I did end up going Barco. But again, 4 million doesn't really bother me. I
Yeah.
have an 8 attacker. Uh, Pedro Porro looks like he's fit, so I'm not too stressed.
Perfect, good stuff. And then obviously with have you got Robinson in your side? Did you go Robinson at 4.5? So we've just
Yeah.
seen obviously Anderson move to Fulham and then pick up a new holding midfielder in Sanderberg. Do you think that kind of strengthens him? There's obviously been the United rumours as well. So with him, do you think he's just a better asset now they've kind of secured the centre of the pitch? Or
If I'm being honest, I don't really buy into that.
yeah,
It's hard to say. Like at the end of the day, Fulham. like defensively, they're not going to be this type of juggernaut team. Even with the likes of Anderson, I don't think it'll take him a while to glue into that defense as well. So, I mean, in theory, it does sound good, but in practice, I don't know if it'll lead to more clean sheets. I mean, hopefully, I own him.
Yeah. And do you think if he did, and obviously it seems a while away anyway if it's likely to happen, but if he does go to United, do you think he'd be a better asset? Do you think it would make him a worse asset competing with some of obviously United's talent, Luke Shaw, etc.? Or what are your thoughts on if he went to United?
Robinson.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that was
Yeah,
a
so that
possibility.
there's been
Really?
yeah, there's been a lot of transfer rumours today saying he's on United's
I
shortlist
didn't
as a
see it.
left back. So
Wow. Man, that would be a really good signing for United. I really like Robinson as a player. When we played him last season, Spurs versus Fulham, he absolutely destroyed us. And he looked very, very good. It's always against Spurs that these type of players prop up, and I really notice them. No, but in general, I would say, yeah, definitely a good signing for United. How that would affect my FPL team, I'm unsure. I think Shaw is still unfit, so
yeah,
um, I mean, at the start of the season, I did consider Martinez. That was before they signed a right back and a centre half. But yeah, interesting.
yeah, good. See, breaking news on this live stream,
Yeah,
mate.
yeah.
See?
I was working today, so I didn't see
Yeah, that maybe I should have said I was working as well. I didn't see it.
that.
Okay, we'll crack on to Chelsea. So obviously, João Felix has just come in. I think he's 6'5" midfielder. We've got Nkunku at 6'5". We've got Neto at 6'5" as well in that Chelsea midfield. They might become the kind of three players of choice in there with Cole Palmer. What are your thoughts on Felix as an asset versus kind of your Nkunkus and your Pedro Netos?
Yeah, well, for as an Nkunku owner, I'm kind of praying that Nkunku nails the spot now. I know he plays tonight.
Yeah,
He's starting, which is quite unusual. But then again, he did get subbed off early, and hopefully he gets subbed off early again today. I think if he gets 60 today, it's a kind of a good thing for his minutes looking forward in the season, or in the next game against Wolves. João Felix is definitely an interesting one. What position he takes up, I think, is the Jackson position. Jackson hasn't looked great. Well, I'm only judging him off that first game. Um, but yeah, I think Nkunku can play behind the striker. That's where I would want him as a FPL asset anyway. And then Palmer on the right and Neto on the left. That's what I think we might see against Wolves if he doesn't get too many minutes tonight.
and do you think he obviously potentially we're looking at Felix? I think he's a midfielder in the game. He's been classified. So do you think he then becomes the kind of if he nails down that nine, does he become the value over Nkunku and with a 4 million saving to Palmer as well?
No, I don't think so. I think in Kunku for Leipzig, he had really, really good numbers. I think I'd still be more inclined to go for an Nkunku over João Felix.
Yeah.
We've seen João Felix in the league before, and might be time for something new.
Perfect, good stuff. And then crack onto something bit bigger picture. What are your thoughts on a game week wild card for some? Obviously, a game week two wild card. Sorry, I know I've seen a few of them knocking about on Twitter. People who are panicking a little bit. What are your thoughts generally? I know you mentioned triple captain. You're not a fan of, but how about a game week two wild card?
Yeah, 100% against. The only reason I'd be with it is if you would have had bench boost game week one.
Yeah,
But otherwise, I think a wild card is one of those things that you want to hold on to as long as possible. Um, like me personally, I've seen a lot of talk about wildcard 4, wildcard 6, but I think generally everyone's team will be different. And if your team going into game week 4 or 6 looks good,
yeah.
no reason to wildcard. So, but yeah, wildcard 2, I think you picked those 15 players at the start of the game for a reason. And you're holding on to them. You didn't just pick them for the first fixture either. So give them I say 1 to 5 game weeks and then judge it off that minimum.
So do you think then with a game week wildcard 2 only after a bench boost? Now, obviously, I don't know if you've seen, but Planet FPL, James played bench boost game week 1 and come off with a monster score, had quadruple spares. Do you think if that was you and you just perfectly done your team for that game week 1, would you roll into game week 2 with the decent side, or would you try and stick to the plan and wildcard straight out of it?
Yeah, I think that's if you do play the bench boost one, it is viable to play the wild card in too.
Yeah.
But it really depends on how fixed your team is for game week 2. If my team was looking fine, I think I'd just plow on with it. Unless I really looked at the fixtures and was put off by it. and you don't own the likes of a Salah or a Haaland going into this week.
Perfect. So this is a bit of a future prediction for me of what might happen next week, but one of the topics I wanted to talk to you about is Son. Obviously, game week 1, I think it was 0.03 expected involvements. Some not strange positions, but some positions we haven't really seen Son taken up in the previous years, kind of seemingly wide and kind of staying further away from the danger zone, if you like, getting in that 6 yard box and finishing off. Do you think he becomes, for people who've got him, do you think he becomes a sell regardless of the outcome in game week 2 with Newcastle, Arsenal, and I think Brighton or Crystal Palace on the horizon in the next 3 as well?
Yeah, I think that's a definitely an interesting debate to be had. Like I was thinking about this in my own head and how I feel about Owen and Son. I think he's disappointing because the expectations you probably have going into that Leicester fixture,
Yeah,
and then when you see him playing so wide, but you have to remember like we play his first game of the season first of all, so you can't be too impulsive about things. But also like we played against a really low block. Of course, you could say then what's the point of easy fixtures? But
yeah,
like we did make chances, and on a different day, Son only needs one chance to convert. So again, like it's kind of a game state thing. Like Everton and Leicester, they play low blocks. But for example, when we play Newcastle at their stadium, they'll want to score goals against us, and
yeah.
that's where the space will open up for Son.
So would you, if you had Son and he doesn't perform against Everton, would you be willing to kind of give him them kind of more open games, if you like, against Newcastle and Arsenal and see what he does, or do you think could you see potentially yourself looking at the likes of Foden and Palmer now they're kind of probably ramping up the minutes?
Yeah, I think I'm still going to hold off. Large reason being, like, if Son's not scoring, I'm trying to think who is for Spurs. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I'm really worried for Tottenham if Son is not assisting or scoring. And I project us, like, in my own opinion, to do quite well this season. So I think I definitely hold on to him. And I think in the type of game like the North London Derby, which I think is week 4, that's a game anything could happen. You could see any scoreline. So if we're going to see goals, Son is likely to be involved.
and what are your thoughts on one of my things that I seen this week is kind of, do you think big at the back is back? Because obviously I think all of the defenders, if I'm right, over 6.5 or over 6, sorry, bar Kieran Trippier kind of return this week.
Yeah, it's funny you say that again because generally I don't think big at the back ever left. Last season I was quite big at the back because I had the funds. The year before that I was as well, the João Cancelo days. So I was always a fan of having the premium defenders. I started last year with Trent. I always said I think Trent is probably my favorite asset of all time. Um, so yeah, but definitely now with the likes of the Arsenal boys and people doubling up, it's definitely here anyway.
Perfect, good stuff. And who would be your choice? So obviously 3 defenders. Say if you had to go 3 big at the back, kind of not worrying about the rest of the team. Who would be your three big at the back defenders for the season or till a later wild card?
Um, if we're not including the first 5, I have to like an Arsenal defender has to be in there.
Yeah,
Um, but definitely a Guardiola, I would say. Like I don't know how good Guardiola is for the money.
yeah.
Um,
Is
I,
that
I
due
think
to his
I
positioning and stuff, or
yeah. So I think at the start of the season I wanted a City defender, and the 5.5 didn't make sense to me when I had just had Guardiola for point 0.5 more.
yeah,
But if he's going to be playing in the positions he is now, the 5.5 ones look just as good, to be honest. And Rico Lewis even better if he gets the minutes, which I don't think is likely.
yeah?
He's an interesting talking point as well.
He's definitely someone, to be honest, I considered with me Kwanzaa dilemma early in the week. I was praying I'd get midweek transfer news that Kyle Walker was leaving, because obviously there's been slight rumours of that, but nothing too concrete. So yeah, Lewis wasn't the choice for me.
You know what? I actually don't mind Lewis. It's the type of punt I would go for early on in the season as
Yeah,
well. I think I'd do it if I had a fourth defender I could rotate with, but again, I don't. So, not somewhere I'll be going. But I don't mind that as a pick as a 1 or 2 week punt. If he gets the next game, you're laughing. Anything after that, I think you know what you've signed up for.
yeah. And obviously this wasn't something, to be fair, that was on my list to talk about. But while we've got you, obviously Spurs, big Spurs fan. Thoughts on Solanke? moving forward? Do you think
Um,
he's going to be the focal point? Like, I know you just said you're worried maybe a bit about Son potentially if he's not scoring. Do you think he can carry the load, the goals really?
yeah, I have to say, I was very impressed the first game. I know he didn't score and he missed a few chances, but I think after one or two goals and he gets the confidence going, and Spurs are playing a bit better. I think he can be a striker for Spurs that gets 15 plus goals a season. I know that might be sounding a bit low for Spurs fans, but if we're being realistic, 15 is
Yeah.
not bad for a season. And again, that's only in the Prem. So, yeah, I was very impressed with his pressing. I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, he signed a 60 million striker for his pressing," but again, when you watch him play, I don't know if you watched the game,
Yeah, I
but
did.
he
Yeah.
was very impressive in my opinion. Yeah,
I
and he was getting really like in good positions.
I think he's a great striker for that side. I think he's create a ton of chances. I think he's a striker who needs not a lot of chances, but he's not clinical, but you've seen last season the most kind of open play goals in the Premier League. So I definitely think he's a guy who needs a lot of chances or a few chances to score. But I think you're looking 15 to 20 this first season, no problem. Um, I can't see that being really an issue in that in that and side really. It's a really good, really attacking side. So yeah, no, he's in my side, so I'm going to tell you he's going to score
Yeah, I was about to
35.
say.
So
Yeah, I was about to ask if you have him.
yeah,
Yes, I think if I didn't own Solanke going into this Everton fixture, um, sorry, I just got a notification. This meeting has been upgraded, but if I was going into that Everton fixture, I would be a slight bit worried, and I think it's mostly because I think we got an injury update today about Tarkovsky being potentially injured with a knock.
yeah,
Um, Ashley Young out with a red card, so they're going to have to start Holgate, Mikalenko, and Michael Keane. And I don't even know who the right back is going to be. So I think Spurs, like this is a prime home fixture for us. We usually do quite well against Everton. And after that first fixture, I think we'll be out for blood. You know what I mean? There will be
yeah,
an
definitely.
expectation to do much better. The home crowd will be on our side for sure. So I'm happy going into that fixture with Solanke and Son.
Oh, good stuff. Let's move on. Let's have a little look at your game week one team, and let's talk about that a little bit more for the moment. So I'm just going to quickly run through it. So Henderson in goal, Robinson, Porro, and Trent at the back. Son, Fernandez, Jota, and Salah in midfield, with Solanke, João Pedro, and Isaac up top. Where obviously highlights being Pedro, Porro, and Trent. Who are the guys that, before we talk about kind of the score and the picks you were kind of happy that you made, who were the ones that were sat in your draft for most of the summer and kind of didn't make it?
Yeah, so I think for 3 weeks I had Henderson, Guardiola, Pedro Porro, and Trent. Of course, no Guardiola here, and the reason Guardiola actually left was because Bob got injured. So one thing led to another, basically.
Oh, good stuff. And so then in midfield, obviously we've got Son, Fernandez, Jota, Salah, as mentioned. Happy with them again? Was there anyone that kind of you were toying with bringing in? Obviously they seem solid for minutes in the first few weeks, so like you said before, went with the kind of solid minutes to start with.
Yeah, Son. It was between Son and Saka. I was about 60-70% on Son, and um, of course, it was a big swing, but I don't regret the decision. My thought process remains the same. Like I didn't pick Son for one game week. Of course, that that Wolves fixture they had, it was almost inevitable that they were going to win, and Saka was going to be involved. But I looked at the bigger picture, and I'm probably going to wildcard him in at a later date. So again, happy with Son. Bruno is one I've been high on for a while. Most seasons I have been, to be honest. But I think he was quite unlucky not to return.
Yeah,
And I think if you look at a lot of players in this team, like the likes of Solanke, João Pedro, Isaac. João Pedro hit the post. Isaac got an assist, but they had 10 men, and Solanke missed a few chances, and we played quite well. So I think in general, you'd be quite happy with the whole team. I am anyway. And the same with Diogo Jota. I mean, how good is he? He's so
yeah,
clinical.
he is. He's great. I'll be honest. I'll show you in a second, but I've got Diaz in my side over Jota because I went without Salah, so I went Diaz simply because I'm looking to wildcard game week 6 onwards. I think that was for me at the start or last week basically. That was the plan that I was looking at, and I didn't really want to wildcard any sooner. And I just think by the time we get to game week 3 for that international break. I think there is a chance that we seen last week Gakpo come on in the middle for Jota, which was kind of unexpected. I think most people were expecting Nunes to come on, maybe take some minutes off him. So I went more with my gut for minutes, and I think Diaz wasn't far behind on goal involvement. I think he was 0.85, something around there, and was unlucky not to come away with a return, whether it be an assist or a goal himself. So I think he's a great pick short term. I do think he probably becomes a minute's risk pretty quickly, especially once that first international break rolls through. But yeah, when he's in the team, he's unbelievable, and everyone knows from an FPL standpoint he's a points magnet when he plays in that number 9 for Liverpool. Whether obviously we've seen him now for Slot and previously for Klopp. So yeah, I loved him. I just felt, for me, kind of trying to play a little bit more long term, that the minutes were safer with Diaz. But we'll see. And then obviously up front, Solanke, we've talked about a little bit. You've got Isak, which most people have also picked, highest owned player in the game at the start of the week, and then João Pedro. So are you a little bit worried now about João Pedro's minutes moving forward?
No, not at all actually. I think for 5.5, you get Manos on penalties when he is on the pitch, and I don't mind the 70-minute being hooked, because that means he's likely to play the next game, if you get me. I know it doesn't make sense, but in my head it kind of does. Of course, they've signed a new striker. Minta and Mitoma look on the ball. But yeah, that's another thing actually. Of course, they bet Everton 3-0, and that was at Everton. So I wonder, like, going in game week 2 where Spurs play Everton at home, like, I just think surely, you know what I mean, and just expectation for us to do well. So
I think you're
really
talking
think
yourself
we could go
into a
big.
song captain. Is that what it is? Song captain,
Man,
maybe
I
Solanke
thought we were going to
captain.
get into this. Yeah, so it's actually a video that I'm going to come out with tomorrow. Yeah, he's on my mind. I've thought about it, like, especially with Tarkovsky being out. He's usually a bollocks to play against, but it's definitely on my mind.
Perfect. So overall, 71 points. I think you were around 1.2 million or no game week rank. Overall rank doesn't really matter at this point, but nice to start off with a good score. It seems on Twitter kind of really where the kind of average was, around that kind of 68, 72 mark, somewhere in there. Really good start, and kind of happy with your team rolling into game week 2. Before we get on to your game week 2 team, because I'm going to come on to that next, is there anyone from game week 1 that maybe you're not looking to transfer in at this point, but you've really got your eye on, that maybe you didn't at the beginning of the season, or weren't in any drafts or anything like that? Anyone that stood out from last week?
Someone that has stood out. I think when Brighton get really good fixtures, I would definitely like a Minta.
Yeah.
I did see him a lot in preseason, and I've heard great things about him in general. But I watched him, and he is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I think he could potentially become the talisman of that team. He's really, really good. Outside of that, though, I think Villa also have a good fixture swing. I think at some point we might be looking at Leon Bailey. But how I get to him, I'm unsure of. Maybe Jota is the route down when his minutes do become a bit more risky.
Yeah. I think Minter definitely. I think I said on, maybe it was my rundown on Monday evening, he's got this kind of, again, as a Liverpool fan, I'm going to compare most people to, to Liverpool, but Minter's got a really liken to Sadio Mane when he was at Southampton. A real rawness, direct pace, will go at anyone, can just beat anyone off the mark from a standing start, and kind of got that real directness that I think Liverpool's seen in him initially from Southampton, that kind of made him the player. And I could see Minter having a similar trajectory where he has a great season with Brighton, and all of a sudden he's at City, he's at Liverpool, he's at Arsenal, he's at somewhere top within, probably by the time next season rolls around, because he's definitely someone, just from a football standpoint, that I've got my eye on, because he looks excellent.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing I'm hoping for Odobert for Spurs. So that same type of raw winger, 19
You've got
years
too
old,
many
so,
wingers, haven't you, now?
not enough good ones.
So we'll go into both of our drafts for this week. Let's go through yours first and kind of talk on that. So again, we've got Henderson in goal, back three, same as this week. So Porro, Trent, Robinson. Midfield is Fernandes, Jota, Son, Salah and Kunku with Solanke and Isak up top. So let's start with the defence. Same as last week. Any worries on Porro, or you're confident he's going to be fit and no worries there?
Yeah, no, I made a tweet. I think it was about a day or two ago, and when I was watching Paro, I was kind of actually getting frustrated with his reaction to being injured. I know again it's easy for me when I'm laid back and watching him play football, getting paid hundreds of thousands a week. But again, I can be critical because I'm not being paid for it.
Yeah.
But I did think he was a bit dramatic. You know, if you're really badly injured, you're gonna go down. You're not gonna be limping around and not asking to be subbed off yet. You know what I mean? So I'm not too worried. And then we saw the training photo of him today. So I don't think I'm too worried at all.
Perfect. And then obviously the main change in the team being Nkunku coming in for João Pedro and the switch to 3-5-2 for this week. Any concerns? I know we've talked about Nkunku kind of playing tonight, got 60 minutes at the weekend. Is there any thought to play João Pedro in there in place of Nkunku?
Yeah, 100%. I think if Nkunku gets more than 75 minutes, I think I will play João Pedro. It really depends on what happens on tonight's game. Has that kicked off yet, actually?
Yeah, I think kicked off at 8 o'clock, so if anyone can let us know the score, that would be
Yes, nil-nil.
still 0-0. So what do
Yeah.
we want? We want a hat-trick and off by 60 minutes for Nkunku. Is that the plan, I think?
Half time will do me nicely.
Yeah, perfect. 33 minutes in and 0-0. So yeah, he needs to get his backside in gear if he's going to get a hat-trick by half-time. But yeah, so that I think that's a good way of thinking about it in terms of obviously he has got a good fixture seemingly at way of Wolves. We've seen them against Arsenal first week, but even for me, I don't think United looked defensively great against Fulham. I think they looked okay, but that Brighton side, if they can be a bit more clinical and obviously with maybe Rutter gets a few minutes at the weekend for them, maybe they could really trouble United at the weekend. So I think that's definitely a closer call than some people would probably let on early in the week.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm the type of manager that is like once I have my head on one thing, I just
That's it.
now.
Good.
He is a better option now. Like automatically, if I put him in, it's just like
Yeah.
I put all type of things aside. This is it now. And I just pretend Joe Pedro's not even there. If he returns, he returns. But like it's happened already. So
Perfect.
yeah, I'm not too worried.
And then obviously I know we touched on it, but the armband's on Salah at the moment. Obviously, Brentford at home. Feeling confident? What's your percentage level? I know you've just touched that you've got a video coming out tomorrow, so don't spoil too much. But what's your percentage levels on that, and kind of sticking with it?
You know, I'm definitely 85% Salah. I'm not gonna lie, but that 15% of me is growing by the day goes on. So tomorrow could be more. One more injury for Everton, and the armband will be laced around Son's arm. No, but I think it's also the fact that you know, Everton in general, they don't sign well, and they did look a bit flat, and especially with Brighton's new manager. Like I know I keep going back to it, and there's just a load of cases for why I think we could bash them. You know what I mean? And I rarely say that because you know it's football, anything can happen, and we haven't been great in that first game. But I think that's even more of a reason why I have that feeling.
I think it's a real good opportunity. I actually think Solanke, if there's no Tarkowski in there, I actually think Solanke's probably the go-to. Just because I think aerially, with no Branthwaite, no Tarkowski in there, you're looking at people like Mason Holgate playing, which I think Solanke, if fit and playing a full 90 minutes as he did on Monday, I think he's got a chance to really stamp his authority on that Spurs team and really put his name in lights and that he's taken over that mantle really, the number 9 for Spurs. So yeah, looking forward to the game, should be good. Right, I'm going to move on to my draft now, so feel free to rip this apart as much as you like, okay? So I've got Henderson in goal, similar to you. I've also got Porro, Robinson, and then I've got Lewis Hall. So I went pretty cheap in defence, Porro being my most expensive defender. So they're the three I'm looking to start this week. Obviously Hall away at Bournemouth. And then midfield, I've got Nkunku, Fernandes, Luis Diaz, and Saka. So Saka was kind of the chop down, if you like, from Salah, and then that kind of extra 2.5 was what allowed me to reach up to Haaland, if you like, and kind of go with the front three of Haaland, Solanke, Isak. What are your thoughts there? So start with the defence. What do you think about Hall? We've talked about Robinson, we've talked about Porro. What do you think of Hall as a pick?
Yeah, no, I watched a good bit of that game, and to be fair, I thought Hall was fairly poor. He got ripped up a small bit, and then he did make that goal line clearance, I think it was. But yeah, I can understand him as a 4.5 pick. And then the fixtures on top of it were amazing. But Bournemouth away, not the easiest fixture. I don't know how that could go. Um, but yeah, definitely not a bad option at all.
Yeah, I'll be honest, there's a couple of guys in the chat who absolutely love Semenyo, and I am slightly worried because all they've gone on about for the last 2 weeks is how good Semenyo is playing at number 9 for Bournemouth. So I think Newcastle obviously felt the wrath of the kind of the red card and struggling a little bit against Southampton because of that. But I think if anyone gave me Newcastle versus Bournemouth away, I've got to fancy a Newcastle win, and along with that, hopefully a clean sheet. I think that's the best you can hope for with the 4.5s, is kind of a win for the side, and then they might keep a clean sheet, they might not, but that's kind of the risk you're taking going with the cheap defenders. So in midfield, obviously we've both got Nkunku and Fernandes, so there's no kind of differences there. And then obviously for me, Saka and Diaz. I've talked to you a little bit why I've got Diaz. What are your thoughts on Saka and generally the Arsenal boys? Obviously we haven't touched on them a lot with you not having kind of any Arsenal exposure. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, no, I think Saka is probably the third best player in the entire game behind Haaland and Salah. Uh, 10 million is really fair value, and I don't know for the next three how it's gonna go. Arsenal are an amazing team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they end up beating all of them, and Saka is involved in most of the goals. But yeah, I think generally, a lot of the Arsenal assets are really good options. But I just prefer to maybe hold off until game week 6.
Yeah, perfect. And to be honest, I've kind of got a bit of a rotation. I've got Rodgers from Villa as my kind of fifth midfielder on the bench as well, who can come in and play the odd game when required if Nkunku's a bit of a worry. And obviously moving forward, Villa have got a nice fixture swing, so I've got him and Konza on the bench along with Ben Johnson from Ipswich. But the only other difference up front obviously is Erling Haaland. I've got him captained at the moment. What was your kind of, I know you went without Haaland last year and it was really successful for you, but what was kind of the motive this year to go without him and to go with Salah?
Yeah, no, I thought basically it was last year Haaland was 14 million, I think he was. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And a lot of the assets last year, like Palmer, of course, 4.8. Um, but even a lot of the assets last year were cheaper in
yeah.
general. So I looked at it this year and I seen Haaland was 15 million and all the assets are more expensive. So I was like, hold on a second, this makes even more sense to go without him. So it kind of just came together for me. I didn't even really think about it. I just saw, like, for example, all right, if I offered you my team now for your team, like, or if I even offered you a wild card, would you take it and take out Haaland? This week, maybe not, but I think going forward, that's probably how you'd end up.
Yeah, I'll be honest, the way I kind of weighed it up was I think people will be looking at Liverpool until I think it's around game week 6, and then I think the wild card window that people are talking about is really City, Arsenal fixtures really change around game week 6, and I actually thought City's fixtures weren't too much more difficult than Liverpool's in the first 6 really. I know obviously Arsenal's thrown in there, but outside of that I think for Haaland it was just more I'd rather start with him because I'm more likely to keep him for a longer period of time. And I think if I didn't go with him, the potential of when that game week 6 wildcard comes, I would almost be guaranteeing a wildcard, I think, to try and get him in, bring the Arsenal boys in, which was kind of my reasoning of going Saka and Haaland over Salah and another premium midfielder potentially, or to Trent in defence if that's where the extra money would be spent. I just thought long term I've just got to hold whatever way it starts, and kind of I've just got to kind of stick to my guns and trust Haaland really. But I've got no doubt as soon as Salah banged and most people had him as their captain, I think instantly Haaland looks weaker because he is more expensive. But that could all flip on its head this weekend if he goes and gets
100%.
if he goes and gets
100%.
2 or 3.
Yeah, I'm not getting too carried away. Like, you're right at what you said there. Haaland could easily do it this week. But again, I still look at like I go into this fixture and as a non-Haaland owner, and after doing it last year, I'm expecting a brace minimum. So anything more than a brace, I'll be bothered with. But anything less,
Yeah.
I'm obviously over the moon with. But yeah, it is definitely interesting how it's going to play out.
Yeah, I'll be honest. One of the key things for me as well that I kind of was, I suppose it looks like I'm guilty of at this point is I did downplay Salah's role in Slot's team from what I'd seen in pre-season. Um, he didn't look fantastic. He looked okay, and but the positions didn't look as great, which meant he needed to be more clinical. His passes probably needed to be better. And Salah's kind of always been guilty of needing a lot of chances to finish. Really, he's never been the most clinical of strikers. So, as I said, it was just a calculated gamble. Really, I wasn't too far off 50-50 off both of them. And as I said, I felt Saka and Haaland were probably better picks long term compared to what we say in Salah, Trent, and whoever that third player is that I'm Son. So for me, I felt like Saka and Haaland, I would be less likely to need to wildcard out, more wildcard into them. Whereas I think Salah, Son, and Trent are players that I'd probably rather try and get out at some point. So that was
Okay,
it. But
so are you set on a wildcard six?
I'm not set on a wildcard six. I was set on that's the earliest point I want a wildcard.
Okay.
Purely because I like the fact that I'm kind of being generally flexible with it, and I think early on I wouldn't want to make a wild card. Probably even game week 4 feels a little bit early. I know people are talking about it because of the international break, but feels really early for me to make a wild card team that soon. So yeah, that's why I felt Saka and Haaland, especially when I get to 6, if I can bring in potentially another Arsenal player, a defender or two, even maybe a second City asset, all of a sudden I'm probably on the cusp of being near some wildcard 6 teams, still with the wildcard in my back pocket potentially.
Yeah, that's also my mindset. Like, just try. Like for me, in an ideal world, playing it in game week 18 would be
Yeah,
ideal. Like, you have a head start, and then people will want to wildcard too early. So again, we'll see how it plays out.
be
I'm
interesting.
happy to just hold on to it as long as possible.
Yeah, and I'm the same. And don't get me wrong, in 2 weeks, if Haaland's really poor and City, because I don't think City were great against Chelsea. I thought they were okay. They were good,
Yeah,
but they weren't fantastic. So if in a couple of weeks City look poor, I'll just transfer him out. I'll kind of just accept the loss and take it on the chin if I need to. But happy to kind of just sit and suffer with him really, and um, hopefully as I said, hopefully it pays off, and you can only react to kind of what happens. So um, right, we've gone through the drafts enough. I've tried to defend Haaland as much as I can against your cracking game week 1 score and your great team. So right, so I'm going to crack on to your free hit team. So obviously, as some of the guys in the chat will know, basically I do a little feature each week where the guest will pick a free hit team that will go up against all the other content creators that kind of come on, and all the other FPL players that I have on, and we kind of basically see at the end of the season who was the top kind of best free hit, who picked the best free hit team really. And I know there's a lot of variables that go into that, fixtures and everything, but definitely thought it was an interesting one. So I think Gian last week, right, I was calculating Gian's team, and he actually got around 90, I think it was around 91 points he actually got, roughly, give or take, I think 91, 92. But I watched the stream back a couple of days ago, and he actually changed his captain on the stream. He asked could he change his captain from Salah to Son
okay,
for his free hit team. So I actually calculated his score at like 91, 92 straight after the goal at the game week, and then when I checked back, actually because of the switch to Son, he only scored 79. So I think that's an
okay.
achievable. 91 would have been a huge game week 1 score. But just looking at your team now, we've got Sells in goal. What you thinking there? Just best fixture?
And did I make this team?
I think so. Let me just double check.
Because that's game week. That's a game week 1 team.
Oh, is it? Let me just double check.
I think
Um,
I made the game week 2 team, yeah.
yeah, you definitely
This
did.
is
Is this Gian's?
yeah, this is
Ah, okay, so let's have a look. I've got your team here, sorry. I will read it
okay,
out. So
no,
we've got
take your time.
Henderson in goal against West Ham.
Yeah.
Is that just because you've got him, you think he's going to score the highest, or...?
No, it's just I needed money elsewhere, so
Yeah,
I just chose the one that will play.
perfect. And then in defence, we've got Udogie at Spurs, Trent, Robinson, and Lewis. I'm going to assume it's a 4-4-2.
Yeah, so I was making a I was like, "Oh, I can't play a 4-4-2, especially on free hit."
Yeah,
And I looked at it a bit more and I was like, you know what? I need Salah and Haaland this week, so this will be the only time I try to get value out of Lewis for 4.5 and play at a 4 at the back.
perfect. So Udogie, Trent, Robinson, and Lewis in defence. In midfield, then in the four, we've got Eze, Jota, Salah, and KDB.
Yeah.
Thoughts
Lovely.
there?
KDB, I think if I were to get rid of Son this week, it would be for KDB. I think he probably his last big season in the Prem, I want to say. I'm gonna probably see him go elsewhere at some point, but I still think he has like another good year in him and an Ipswich at home. I mean, he's their captain now while Walker's out, so he
Yeah.
could go big.
And then in the two up top, we've got Haaland and Muniz.
Yeah, no Isaac, but it's a free hit team. He can take some risks.
Yeah, that's it. And currently on there, I've got the armband on Salah. Is that where you want it to stay?
Um,
So on the screenshot you sent me, we've got Salah as captain. Do you want to hedge your bets with
yeah,
Haaland or a De Bruyne? You
I
sounded
don't think I read into that, but give it to KDB
give it to KDB. Okay, that's set in stone
for the
now. Okay, that's
variance.
live
So no
recorded.
problem.
So let's see.
I'm still gonna beat Gian, don't worry.
Yeah, honestly, when I was adding Gian's score up, I thought 91. That's a killer game week one. No one's going to be interested because no one's going to be able to get to 91. And then I was listening to the stream and he said, "Let me change captain. Let me go to Son." And yeah, killed him. Unfortunately, I think that 79 won't be good enough in a few weeks. But I think KDB in that free hit side. So I really like to pick a KDB. Rico Lewis, obviously, we expect to kind of start and get a few minutes. Again, you picked Udogie there for Spurs. Was that just a money saving from Porro? Would you have gone to Porro if you had the 5.5?
Yeah, I would 100% went to Paro. I think at the time I thought he was injured. But the reason Dogi is there is not necessarily because how good he was against Leicester. I thought he was by far the worst player on the pitch against Leicester.
Yeah,
I'm usually not very critical either, but he was getting ripped apart. He kept losing the ball, and I thought he looked very, very uncomfortable. But again, it's a free hit team. You don't need to hold on to him for a while. So the thought process is get in that Everton game while they're not at their strongest, and hopefully come out with a clean sheet.
perfect. Good stuff. Good stuff. So let's see how that does. Obviously, I think on the bench we've just got a load of fodder, so nothing to worry about there as everyone's expected to play at the minute. No injuries or anything. Right, I'm just going to dive into a bit of questions from the chat. They've been kind of flying through since we started, to be honest, so I might come back to a couple of topics. So the first question that come in, which will be one you'll like, is thoughts on Solanke as a differential captain, as Everton have got 3 out of the 4 defenders missing.
Yeah, I think it's definitely not bad. It's just that's assuming right. You don't have Haaland. Um, I don't know if you have Salah, but like if you have Son, I'd go Son. On penalties, I think we didn't see him at his best last game, but if Solanke is going to be the threat for Everton, then it might open up space for Son. So, yeah, Solanke's not a bad option though.
Good stuff, good stuff. And then we've got another question more about kind of your ranking and your FPL history. Was someone just said bit of praise. Your last season was insane. There definitely weren't many, but what was your biggest mistake or learning point last year?
Yeah, I got a bit carried away. My head was in the clouds, and you're
Yeah,
doing so well, and you want to keep doing well. Like I was there in that type of rank for 30 game weeks in a row, like, and of course my content started flying and all that, but I wasn't doing so well, so I played an unorthodox, I would say, wildcard. I can't even remember which week I played it in, but that was just to keep me afloat in those type of high ranks. But
yeah,
it bit me in the arse towards the end, so I definitely would have taken my time. Probably took a red arrow too, for it to turn out better in the end.
perfect. And then so I've got another question related to premium midfielders. So we've got KDB or Foden over Son.
Yeah, for me, probably KDB. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say, but I think KDB on his day, he's the type of player we seen triple captain one season. He can get a monstrous haul. Whereas Foden can too, but I think we've seen it more in the past with KDB when he's been fit. Last season was an outlier for Foden.
Yeah, it's I'm definitely interested to see what role Foden plays, especially with Gundogan coming back to City as well. I think obviously Pep seems to want to play Bernardo, KDB, maybe Gundogan and Foden in those middle spots. So maybe last season was a bit of an aberration for Foden, and we'll see potentially um, what he can do. Next question is on a 5.5 midfielder. So thoughts on Jacob Murphy going into game week 2?
I don't really like it. I think if you missed the first game, which obviously he didn't do well in because he got subbed off, but I think that was the boat that was sailing off. Like if you weren't on him then I don't think you should hop on him against Bournemouth. Look, I think if he was more nailed and he wasn't the first to be subbed, I'd be all over him. But I can't see it.
Perfect, good stuff. And then someone's asked if you were, and obviously you are currently on Barco, would you be looking to get him out if he was one of your playing defenders? Would you need him to come out?
Ooh, I hope he's not your third playing defender. But yeah, I have no worries about price drop or anything. I suppose you have no choice if he is your
Yeah,
third playing defender, but to go and get someone else.
perfect, good stuff. And then I've got a little one for you as kind of a Spurs fan. Really, was what are your thoughts around kind of season long? Not so much at the minute, but what are your thoughts on kind of Bergval and Mikey Moore maybe coming in and Archie Gray, those younger guys as FPL assets as the season goes on?
Yeah, at the start of the season, I was hyping up Bergville. I said it on Scout. I was speaking to Joe. I don't know if you went with him in the end, but Bergville for sure. I think he will play in the Bentancur role more so as a 10. I don't know where this. I don't know if you've seen, but people talking about him playing 10. That's
Yeah,
not going to happen. It's going to be a 6 or a 8. Um, but yeah, I thought that first appearance he had was quite good. He's only 18 years old, and I think we're going to see much more from him. In terms of Archie Gray, I'm not quite sure how much game time he gets. Like, I think Bergville is likely to start over him, but I know Ange really likes Archie Gray,
yeah,
so I'm not quite sure. It could be either of the two. My pick out of the bunch would be a Bergville because he plays more similar to Bentancur. So silky and so tidy. He's a general and he's very, very young. Was there another name that you said?
Mikey Moore, the young winger as well. Do
Oh,
you think
Mikey
he'll
Moore.
get some
Yeah,
minutes?
yeah. So he had a under 21s game, I think, when we played against Leicester. So he wasn't involved in the team, but he was given a new squad number. I'm fairly sure. Will we see him this season in the Prem? I think he might be subbed in late in games, but I think most of his minutes might come early in the Europa League or the Carabao Cup games. I can't see him getting too much time in the Prem.
Perfect. And someone's just mentioned in the chat there, and again, I don't know if you've seen with you working hard today, but Trippier to Everton. There's rumours. I think Ornstein put a tweet out before saying Everton are exploring Trippier. Do you think that would be maybe bring him to life as an FPL asset again if he goes to Everton?
Yeah, hopefully he joins before we play him on Saturday. I know Son has a good record against Trippier. No, but seriously, Trippier for Everton. I don't know. Everton are usually good at set pieces. Sean Dyche ball, you know how it's like Tarkovsky and Brantwaite, and I can't think of a better man to whip in a ball than probably Trippier. Um, at that price, though, I don't think I like it for an Everton defender. I know Mikalenko gets a lot of hype, but none of the content creators went with him this year, so it's definitely an interesting thing that's going to play out. And again, none of the defenders for Everton are fit, so maybe it'll come up later in the season when Everton have better fixtures.
Perfect, good stuff. So for me, I'm just going to go over kind of my draft in terms of my decision this week, and you can kind of give me your thoughts on it. So I went from Kwanzaa, I made the move before the price drop, and I went to Robinson. As we've seen in my draft before, Robinson came in and he's starting for me this week. What are your thoughts on kind of the people that moved on Kwanzaa early to avoid the price drop? Do you think the decision was to kind of sit on it and maybe swallow the zero point 0.1 price drop?
If I had a fourth defender, I wouldn't have substitute Kwanzaa. I would have given him another game. He is like I don't doubt him if he starts next game. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, no,
Um,
neither would I.
in terms of the price drop, if I only had three defenders, I would have definitely gotten rid of him for Robinson before the price drop, 100%.
Yeah, I to be honest,
Um,
I've got Konza. Konza's my fourth playing because I was hoping I'd at least get to game week 3 for Konza, or for Kwanzaa before Konza came in to kind of take over that starting role in the side. Um, I'm just not 100% sure. I think he probably does start at the weekend because I do think from a Liverpool standpoint, I don't think Slot's the type of manager that would bring him off at half time and then drop him completely. I do think he'll probably start, but I don't like the fact that he made that move at half time. I think that could happen in any game now moving forward if Kwanzaa does start. So I think it was more in fear of maybe he makes that same decision again. Not that he won't start. I actually think he will start against Brentford with no Ivan Toney. They're not quite as physical as the lap was at the weekend for Ipswich. So kind of interested to see that. But yeah, I went Robinson purely on the basis that I thought he was more solid for 60 minutes at least over Kwanzaa. But interested. I'm hoping now going into game week 3, because game week 3 for most people's teams looks a bit of a mess. I think everyone's kind of. I think Liverpool play United. Obviously Villa fixtures change and most people haven't got Villa cover. I think is it Tottenham have got Newcastle, so a lot of people have got
Newcastle
both
away, yeah.
players. So we're going to see some teams that have got both Liverpool and United players playing each other, and Tottenham and Newcastle players playing against each other there. So what are your kind of thoughts and plans looking into the near future?
Yeah, I was actually looking at that today or this morning. I was looking at my team, and my team doesn't look great for it, and I think that's a week that I think Haaland plays West Ham. Is that
Yeah,
wrong? Yeah, it's a nice enough fixture for Haaland, and look, I'm tripled up on the Liverpool boys. I know in the past we've seen Liverpool can be great against United, um, but I'm still a bit unsure. I'm not put off by it, but going into those two fixtures with six of those assets, it could be a bad week for myself.
yeah. I think it's going to be a tough week for everyone. It'll definitely that captaincy might be make or break that week in terms of Haaland at home to West Ham. I think out for the non-Haaland owners, I'm really struggling to see kind of a clear um, a, a clear captain really, unless they bring in one of the Man City boys, your KDBs, Fodens. Um, because as you say, Liverpool have been good against United in the past, but I think it is away. I think it's at Old Trafford, so it won't be as easy as it has been, I don't think. And obviously, Tottenham and Newcastle tied up against each other. Yeah, it could be potentially one of the Arsenal boys that people look to. But I don't think you've got any Arsenal players either, have you? So you might be in a bit of a tricky spot come game week 3.
Yeah, no, bringing in an Arsenal asset, I was looking at that as well. Is hard though because they play Spurs and then
Yeah,
they also play City, so
I think it's that 4 and
it's a
5.
tough one.
They go Spurs, City, and 4 and 5, is it? And then or 5
Yeah,
and 6, not too
that's
sure.
right.
Yeah, 4 and 5.
4 and 5. Yeah.
So yeah, I think anyone who's gone without Arsenal at this point or who hasn't got an Arsenal asset is kind of just sitting back and you got to wait till game week 6. I think you just got to kind of eat the fact you didn't go with them. But that Wolves game was the one everyone was expecting to be a really good game for them, and I don't think anyone expected anything else from
Yeah, it's
that
no
Wolves game.
surprise.
So just a question there come in on the chat: how much do we need to worry about price changes during the international break?
I don't think it'll be too volatile. It depends if suddenly everyone's deciding the wildcard four is best, then you'll see a lot. But I think in general it should be fine. Of course, you get a heads up. We have loads of tools. I don't know where you use them, but in general, there are tools everywhere that will tell you, and I'm sure people will be tweeting about it. So stay clued in. Don't be too far away from FPL, even during the international break. But you should be fine.
And what are your thoughts on wildcarding in an international break? Is that where you would actively look, or are you comfortable kind of, I suppose, sitting back in an international week and waiting for those, maybe just like a single week in between no international break and wildcarding in that space?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good time to wildcard, but not in week four. It's so
Yeah.
early. If it was a bit later, I think an ideal time would be if there was an international break in week 16, for example, and then you have decisions like on how you want to set up your team for the second half of the season. But yeah, I think in general it is a good play to do it in an international break. We see lots of injuries, the odd tweak, and yeah, it's not a bad thing at all.
Good stuff, good stuff. Think someone's just mentioned there on the back of our Trippier chat, 6 million for an Everton defender. I don't think so. I think that's
Yeah,
a,
yeah, I'd
I
agree.
think that's a fair opinion to have, isn't it? We've got one last question before we kind of wrap up here. What do you think the mystery chip will be?
Yeah, it's a hard one. Because I tried to think what it might be, and it has to be something out there. But then again, I don't think they can give us something too much, or else it would completely change the game. So I think it probably will be a limitless ship, I want
Yeah,
to say. I can't really see it being anything else. I just wonder, will it be a limitless ship that you have to play in week 18? Everyone has to, you
yeah,
know. But yeah, it will be something that is fair to everyone because I think they understand they can't change too much from a strategic point of view. We have a lot of people that are fuming about it. Me personally, because I play the game for what it is. I don't care what they add. I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna enjoy the game.
yeah.
So I'm not too stressed about it.
Yeah, I've got a very similar opinion as yourself. I think it'll be a limitless or an unlimited chip that'll play similar to a free hit, but without a budget effectively. So for that 1 week, you'll be able to pick whatever team you want with no price restrictions. I actually think it'd be a really fun week for if there's kind of like an obvious game week to play it, or there's a couple to choose from where because we always see it, the top scorer really in a game week is very rarely someone like Salah or Haaland. It's kind of a defender who's scored and got an assist. That actually it could be a real good chance to kind of stick with your team and stick with the process where someone goes out and picks kind of five premium midfielders, Haaland, Isak, Solanke or Watkins and all the big defenders and hopefully you kind of get a bit of variance in there where actually your boys kind of pull through. So I definitely think that would be the most interesting. And like you said, I'm not too sure what they can do um, that that would be too far away from what we already have and be too hard for kind of casual people to understand and really get involved in because it's going to definitely be something that wants to pull people back into the game that have kind of switched off over Christmas and
100%.
and really thought so. Should be interesting though. Right, I'm going back to the chat just because we've had a couple of questions come in. Someone's asked, can I free hit in game week 2? Now, can I answer that for you just quickly before you give your opinion? Yes, you can. I think chips can be played in every week. I'm going to assume Chai's going to say you can. He wouldn't advise it. As an FPL expert, obviously, as he is, he wouldn't advise it, but of course you can. Free hit whenever you need to, whenever you think's best. You go ahead and do it. I've actually seen some people looking at a free hit this week simply with a view to they've set their kind of team up for 1 and 3 and kind of are looking at free hitting now because of Haaland. I think is the reason why people are free hitting in game week 2. I've seen a couple of free hit teams on Twitter. Um, but yeah, I think it's a bit of FOMO on Haaland. What are your thoughts? Go on, give us your thoughts on a free hit in game week 2.
Yeah, I suppose like I don't mind that as a strategy, but what I would say is you need to get used to not owning Haaland if you're gonna go no Haaland.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to take some hits and see some red arrows before the sun starts shining again. Um, Again, like you said, I wouldn't advise it myself. But primarily, like from my own point of view, the reason I don't like it is, like FPL is a type of strategic type of game,
yeah,
and chips are kind of the only thing you have to your name kind of way, if that makes sense. And if I use that in the first week, I'd be looking at the next 36 game weeks and thinking I'm kind of empty-handed here. And, I think I'd get quite bored because, they're the only other things other than that one transfer a week that you can do. And then coming to the end of the season, I know there's less doubles and blanks, but of course, free hit is strongest in one of those weeks.
yeah. Perfect. And then some good news we've just got. I think Nkunku's just scored a penalty in the 50th minute.
Come
So
on, sub him off.
sub him off now, and we roll into game week 2 with the penalty taker for Chelsea. Let's pretend Palmer's not
Perfect.
playing, eh?
Yeah. No, no, we take that all day. Happy days. Um, yeah, Chelsea coming off a loss as well, so probably expect something from Nkunku going forward.
Perfect. Well, I think we've answered most questions, covered everything we can do at this point for game week 1, game week 2, and everything in between. So, just quickly, if you want to give a quick plug for kind of where your socials are, where people can get hold of you, the type of content to expect, and what's coming up.
Yeah, FPLChai on YouTube, Chai underscore FPL on Twitter. Basically, I do a deadline stream every single deadline, and then videos throughout the week, team selections, players to look out for, etc. And I do a Sunday video for Scout. And next week, I'm potentially on Burning Questions, so keep an eye out.
Perfect. And can I just ask, did you went over to Fest, didn't you, for this year's Fest?
Yeah, so I'm from Ireland. It was my first time going over to Fest, and I have to say it's absolutely unbelievable. Don't mind all the stuff you see on YouTube or
Yeah,
on Twitter. I know it can be a toxic place. It's not true. These subreddits about certain people. I suppose I will speak about Dan Small, but deadly guy. You know, I've not one bad word to say about him.
yeah,
People can have whatever perspective they want, but I can only say from what I see, and everyone there was sound out. There's over 400 people there and like-minded people. I would definitely recommend it next season. You don't even have to be an FPL nerd. At the end of the day, like I always say, people might criticize us for being so big into FPL, but at the end of the day, we just love football, and we made up a game to just talk about football. So
yeah. Good. I think that's a
enjoy the
fair
game.
review. Anyone who's obviously Mark and all the scout guys and the people behind Festal absolutely loved that. I'd clip that as a bit of a promo for them and send that over to them. But yeah, no,
Yeah, feel free to do
yeah, it
it.
was. I'll be honest, obviously,
Ambassador.
yeah, that's it. Seriously, I think you're the best promotion guy for them, flying over all the way from Ireland. But yeah, I think it's something obviously I've talked about to a couple of my mates in the FPL community, and really kind of think that next year it's only going to get bigger. Fest, I think. Obviously, I know they went to a bigger venue this time and a kind of more better, I suppose, a better venue than the year before, and really enjoyed it this year. I definitely think it's going to do nothing but grow, and I almost think they're going to have to do more than one a season, potentially maybe one later in the season, because it's going to become so popular throughout
Yeah,
the
they're actually
community.
talking about a Winterfest. They're planning it, so definitely keep eyes out. No, what I say is like it doesn't matter what type of person you are. Networking is always a good thing in your life.
Yeah.
Especially when it's this common ground like FPL. It doesn't matter how awkward you are. I know a lot of people struggle with that, but it's football is always it's always there, and you can always fall back on it, and deadly, like I said, deadly people there. So definitely put yourself out there.
Yeah, good. I'm looking forward to next year's. If there is a winter one, I'll definitely try and get to it because, as I said, it looked like everyone had a blast. To be fair, and yeah, everyone I've spoken to has not got a bad word to say about the event, which is definitely good. Right, before we wrap up, guys, if I can ask kindly, if you would go and leave a like on the video, leave a comment on the stream. Leave some good feedback, hopefully, for Chai. Obviously, he's been a great guest for us tonight. Hopefully, we want him back on. So, leave some nice comments. Go over, like his videos, subscribe to his YouTube channel, follow him on Twitter if you don't already. The guy is a master at getting top 5k ranks at this point. So let's keep an eye on what he does this year. But subscribe to the channel if you don't already. Subscribe to our channel over at Live Lounge. I'll probably be back on Monday with another rundown for Game Week 2. And then hopefully Jai's going to do us all a favour and recommend us to some great guests that we can have on in future weeks as well. I'll blackmail him into that. But yeah, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, guys. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you all next week. Cheers, guys.